Welcome to GIA Enrollment Insights Week Part 2, Teens in College, Inland Empire Student Perceptions, Plans, and Obstacles. In this session, Dr. Yvonne Olivares shares with us the results of an innovative multimodal cognitive method study, which provides insights on teen student perceptions of the value of college today and their knowledge of colleges, majors, and information resources. Let's take a listen.
Welcome. My name is Yvonne Olivares, and I'm going to be talking about Inland Empire teens and how they imagine and plan their futures. Now, this study was originally intended to understand the Inland Empire's teens' perceptions on the value of college. The study was completed over the summer, this past July, over 2 days. Day one was all about exploring the teens' lives. How are they spending their time, especially their feelings around school today, their expectations for the future. You know, everything from where they're going to live to what they're going to do, helping identify and break down, what are their priorities. And ending day one with exploring what they think it'll actually take for them to reach their intended futures. The goal here was to identify any post-high school education plans and more clearly any knowledge gaps in order for them to reach those goals. On day two, we started an activity that was all about the perceptions of college. This activity was all imagery based, which meant that it allowed us to have them explore what exactly they think about college in a way that they're normally not asked by teachers and parents. So we went beyond those automatic answers that they're used to getting. We also explored the sources of college information. Who are they seeking out information? Where are they going to learn more about their options? As well as an activity that was all about the barriers to enrollment. We used actually a proxy for this. A new friend is moving and transferring to their school and is going to be taking the same classes as them. This proxy allowed for emotional distance to any potentially painful or harmful barriers that are in their lives. Because remember, these are teenagers and they don't have control of their own situation. So it's important to allow any emotional distance to protect them. And then finally, ending the study with the teens creating recommendations for increasing educational success. Because of their age group, it was really important to, throughout the study, protect their emotional, psychological, and physical well-being, and to end on a positive note to remove any unintended anxiety that may have been created during the study itself. Now, the method that was actually used in the study was one I created for the private sector. It combined cognitive interviewing techniques for memory associations, journaling for clarifying emotions and problem solving, as well as focus group and survey dynamics. Now, I've got a screenshot here on this that you can see to give you a sense of what it actually looked like. For the teens, it looked much like any social media or even a messaging app. They'd see my face, I'd have a question or an activity, and they'd get a chance to reply. And those replies, just like in a social media or messaging, they can write out a response, they can post a video, they can put pictures up, whatever way they need to help express themselves. Now, the data actual collection also supported representation. It was important that we use a tool that allowed teens to participate anytime, anywhere from any device. Remember, this is the end of the summer, the start of potentially in person. So we needed to remove any barriers for their participation. Teens didn't need to have the current tech. They could use their own phone, use a parent's phone, or friends, use a library computer. And as I mentioned before, teens could communicate in whatever format was better suited to them. So if they were good writers, they could write it out. If they were better at speaking to their thoughts and feelings, they could post a video, they could upload images, whatever they needed to best communicate. Now, the actual study sample, because we were looking at, i.e., we really wanted to make sure that we gathered the scope of the socioeconomics here. Half the sample were teens living below a living wage, and the other half above. And even amongst those below a living wage, we had some living in pretty extreme poverty. For those of you who are unfamiliar, living wage is actually a more accurate way of getting to socioeconomic divide than income alone. Living wage is actually a calculated variable based on where the teen lives, how much the household income is, how many adults are living in the household, how many teens are living in that household. Again, this is important for us to understand not just how much money is coming in, but how is that money being divided to give us a better sense of where they are economically. And the teens that were in this study were those from the most extreme poverty to the most affluent and everything in between, representing the Inland Empire. We also included a racially and ethnically diverse group of students. And about half the study were teens who planned to go to college after high school. The other half were teens who were unsure or absolutely no plans to go to college. Now, originally this study, we were actually intending to do a third each, a third who, yes, absolutely, I'm going to college. A third, I'm not sure, and a third, no. We actually really worked hard. I increased the recruitment by 50%, which is really unprecedented, trying to find teens that had absolutely no plans to go to college. And it was really difficult, which makes sense if you think about who this age group is. We were talking to 14 to 17-year-olds. And psychologically, their development phase is about exploring who they are, what do they believe in, what are their life goals, what are their values. And it's very rare to find someone who's in that exploration stage who's willing to say no to an option for themselves. And as you can see here, the age groups, as I mentioned, 14 to 17-year-olds, half at the younger age groups, the other half at the older, and about half and half male, female. We had a lot of schools represented, primarily high schools, though we did get a middle school and a couple of private schools, and a little bit more representation of Riverside than San Bernardino. All right, so let's get into the findings, the whole reason why you are watching this presentation. To sum everything, the Inland Empire teens have a high sense of value for college. This is independent of race, ethnicity, independent even of their own college plans. It doesn't matter if they plan to go to college or not. Teens value college. I mean, as you can see on these quotes, color indicates yes, no, or unsure. I mean, we've got in the middle here in red, this teen who doesn't plan to go to college still says, I find college a very important factor in the pursuit of financial success. And an unsure teen at the top here, she says, college equals a better paying job. It may take 10 years to equal the cost of college, but after it's paid, you still have the knowledge and the title to go with you. The one thing that was common amongst teens, no matter their college plans, was this idea that college has a lot of financial value. What was not a common theme, which surprised me, was the cost of college. That has cost of college is something that's been discussed by so many for as long as I can think of. But for our study, it wasn't a common theme. The few times it did arise, it was from unsure teens of color who talked about their ability to afford. They had a lot of concerns about being able to pay for college, but not necessarily concerns about is college worth it. And I think it's better actually coming from the student's own words here. A young male here who's unsure about college said, I do think it's worth it. I'd like to give it a good shot, but I don't want to waste the money if it turns out not so great. Maybe I would try a community college or see what grants are out there for college. And this teen goes on to talk about concerns about their own ability to be successful in college, not actually questioning the value of a college degree. Now, when it comes to visions of the future, it's universal. Every teen in the study imagined a future where they had a nice home. They were going to get to travel. They were going to have these careers that they enjoyed. And I underlined career here to make a point in that I was really surprised. No teens talked about just doing a job to get paid. Everyone in the study talked about having a career that they were going to enjoy, love doing, which was, I have to say, having done studies with teens for a very long time, this was actually a new theme. The place where teens differed was in their ability to see a concrete path to their imagined future. Teens who plan to go to college, those who are really certain about their college plans, they tend to know and often even access multiple college information resources. They have, specific colleges that they're imagining that they're going to go to, even if they're not likely. I mean, we did have some teens who talked about their plans to attend Harvard and Yale and MIT. And while we may look at it and say, well, what are the chances of that? At least they were naming colleges. The teens who were certain about their college plans also had specific majors in mind. And while most folks would say, well, what does a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old know about a major? The fact was, having any major, even if it's one that ends up getting changed, really helped in them being able to plan out their future, plan out the steps, both while in high school, how to get them enrolled into college, and then in college and afterward. Now, another common theme for the teens who plan to go to college was when we did that perceptions exercise, and remember I said we used a lot of imagery there. The teens who plan to go to college, all of their images had all these sort of group activities. They had lots of laughing young people, laughing together, young people outside, playing ball, young people hanging out. Even, graduation images had lots of people, together in them. Everything was about how they were going to be with others and having this shared group experience. It was extremely, extremely positive. Now, all of these findings were independent of race, ethnicity, living wage, age, and gender. Now, another common element for our teens who plan to go to college was these folks are telling us, these teens are telling us that they plan to go outside the ID. They are looking at famous or prestigious colleges. And for example, this first teen said, because NYU is my dream college, because I want to live in New York, but I really don't know much about the university other than what I've seen on TV. And this is pretty common for those who are selecting famous or prestigious colleges. They can name them, they have some vague sense of the college, but all of these ideas that they know about it are based on something they saw in a movie or in a television show. We did have some teens who named colleges known for specialization. For example, this teen said, I chose San Diego State because I hear they have a good robotics and computer science course. Now, the last group talked about choosing their college based on an official tour or a casual visit. Now, something that's a little unique about this is the teens, as I mentioned, all want to go outside the Inland Empire, but the ones who at least were selecting schools that were geographically close, for example, going to school in Fullerton or Los Angeles, talk about these official tours or even doing casual visits and walking around campus. For example, this teen says, the reason our school would take us to different colleges. When we went to UCLA, I just knew this was the college I wanted to go to. I love the campus and everything they stand for. So what we take away from this is it doesn't matter, that a teen has unrealistic expectations about the colleges, famous college, prestigious college. The fact that they have a college in mind means that they're already taking these concrete steps and they feel more certain about not only being able to go to college, but feel confident that they're able to reach those imagined futures. Unfortunately, this is a stark contrast to our unsure teens. Our unsure teens, I don't know if you remember back, and I said all teens had the same visions of the future, these nice homes, they were going to travel, they were going to have these great careers. The difference was that the unsure teens, they didn't know how to get to these imagined futures. When we asked them to start planning and how do they move toward it, the unsure teens all admitted that they believed college was a necessary step to reach their own future goals, but they weren't sure how to get there. The common elements for unsure teens were that they're more likely to rely on a single college information resource. They aren't able to name a specific college, even when prompted, when they say, yes, I think college is going to have to be that if I'm going to do this job, if I'm going to do a career, I'm going to buy my nice house, or, whatever it is, the big thing they're focusing on. But when asked, what colleges are you thinking of, they can't think of any colleges. And on top of that, when you can't think of a college, you can't think of a major. The teens, when we looked at their perceptions of college imagery, now they talked about all the financial benefits, just like the certain teens, but all of their imageries, instead of focusing on the group activities and fun imagery, these were all images that had individual effort, individual awards. They'd show a student sitting in a chair by themselves, a single student, graduating, someone, holding up bags of money by themselves. And their descriptions were all reiterating the same theme, which is that college was about all the individual effort required of them and the individual rewards that they could receive. Now, I mentioned that all the unsure teens were relying on a single source for college information. And this was, as you saw on the slide before, was independent of age, race, ethnicity, independent of all the demographics. It would be nice to say that one single source was a school counselor. Unfortunately, it wasn't. The few who mentioned a school counselor mentioned the counselor as a believed source. And I'm using the quotes there. And actually, I'm going to read the student's quote for you here. I may be wrong, but I believe it is the counselor. And we heard this over and over again for the few who thought a counselor could be an option, but they'd never actually tried to speak to a counselor. And this included, teens who were seniors, who were thinking, maybe college, but I'm not sure. More often than not, the teen's single source of information was an online search. The lucky few who felt, of the unsure teens who felt like they were getting a little better information, were ones who had an older sibling or an older cousin who they felt like they could ask questions. Now, I mentioned unsure teens don't name specific colleges. Scrolling through, trying to get teens to, name some local colleges, it was very difficult. The closest we get a teen to name a college actually was this teen here, who mentioned historically Black colleges and universities. This is not a concrete plan. This teen said, I plan to get this education at an HBCU, but I don't know a specific one yet. When asked why, she went on to talk about how going to an HBCU would be a different kind of environment, and I would be around people who get what I go through racially. While it's all great that this teen's going to an HBCU, it's disconcerting to see that this is actually a senior who doesn't actually know names of colleges yet. And so it really tells us that these teens are not as far along in their planning as they should be if they really are going to go to college. Now, something that was common for both the yes teens and the unsure teens was that all of them assumed that if they applied to go to college, they would obviously go straight to a four-year college. The teens not only measured success as going straight to four-year college, but just most of them didn't actually even acknowledge the community college path. The teens were really unfamiliar with the other paths that they could pursue to help reach their future goals. So in sum, the study showed that many Inland Empire teens are unaware that the school counselor is a college resource. 2, any planned college or any planned major is better than none to get students moving toward a path. Which brings us to the third. Teens need more direct connection with local college options and pathways, be it certifications, 2-year degrees, 4-year degrees. Because as I said, students need something they're planning toward in order to start moving on a path. So my question for you before we close out is, where do we go from here? If you have questions, please feel free to contact me at Yvonne_Olivares at s4dds.com or contact Growing Inland Achievement at Sorrel at inlandempiregia.org. Thank you very much.